Hello and welcome to the second episode of Jumbo Connections. I'm Paul Sweeney, Director of Athletic Communications at Tufts. With Jumbo Connections, we are bringing together a current student athlete and alumni of Tufts University sports teams to share their experiences at Tufts and beyond. Today, we're pleased to be joined by members of the women's lacrosse program, current senior Catherine Lawliss and 1987 alumna Cecelia Wilcox Magargee. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start with introductions. If you could each take a minute to let us know a little bit about you, starting with you, Cecelia.
Sure. So I'm an 87 grad and have had a long career in sports and event production. I worked for a couple of Olympic organizing committees, which was really fun in Atlanta and in Utah. 13 years at Reebok as the head of global event marketing, which was awesome. Got to see the world. But 12 years ago, I left the big job in the big city and came down to Charlottesville, Virginia to help raise my family. And I've continued working part-time in events, but my family's been my priority. And I did get to coach my daughter in lacrosse through high school, which was the highlight.
My name is Catherine. I'm a senior here at Tufts. I'm from Portland, Oregon, so a little whiles away. And I'm a psychology major here. And after I graduate, I'm hoping to do something with that.
So how did you both get started in the sport of lacrosse and how did it become so important in your life? Catherine, let's start with you.
I think I started playing lacrosse when I was in 5th grade. In Oregon, lacrosse wasn't big at all, but there was a new youth team starting in my area. My mom had agreed to coach. She played growing up on the East Coast and in college, and encouraged me to try it out. And I probably didn't really have a choice because she was the coach. But I didn't love it at first, but the connection I had with my mom definitely helped me persevere. And eventually I started to really love it. I'm a super competitive person, and lacrosse turned into like an amazing positive outlet for me to release my energy. And growing up, I loved all the relationships I made with my teammates. And throughout middle school and high school, I got to play with my younger sister. And that was like an unmatched bonding experience for both of us. And I would say overall, like the people and the connections have been why I've kept playing for so long.
That's great. Catherine, did you play any other sports?
I played soccer too in high school and middle school growing up.
Oh, that's great. You got to keep playing in high school, because what I was going to say is I didn't start playing lacrosse until high school, believe it or not.
Wow.
It was, again, same, just wasn't as prominent as it obviously is now.
Yeah.
But I started playing because I needed something to do in the spring. I played soccer and basketball,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like it is now where you play year round and there's, it's club and it's all summer. And so I feel like really fortunate for that. So I needed something to do in the spring, and lacrosse sort of married the outdoors wide open spaces of soccer and the hand-eye of basketball. And as soon as I picked up the stick, I loved it and never turned back. So.
Yeah.
We should mention that Cecelia was also on the soccer team at Tufts. What is the path that led both of you to Tufts, Cecelia?
So my older sister Diane went to Tufts as well, and she played field hockey. She ran indoor track and she played lacrosse. So my high school Saturdays were often spent at Tufts watching field hockey or lacrosse, or going to some random indoor track meet up in New Hampshire or somewhere. So I fell in love with Tufts long before going there. And watching the chemistry that she had on her teams, it was amazing. The energy was just phenomenal. I can't believe it continued. That's an assumption I made, was that's how it was going to be when I got there. And I got really fortunate because it was.
Yeah, kind of to echo that chemistry and energy. I remember the first time I visited Tufts and met the team, I was like, wow, this is a group of people I want to be around. Like the chemistry and energy on and off the field was amazing. And I guess also when I was looking at Tufts, I was really drawn towards a liberal arts education, and the size and location of Tufts, which was really close to Boston, and the proximity to an airport was also pretty nice coming from across the country.
And so Catherine, Portland, I mean, that is a really, really long way to go for school. Were you looking also sort of out there, Oregon, Washington, or were you psyched to get away? Was that the plan?
I was psyched to get away. My family's from the East Coast, so I've spent a lot of time out here. And I also was pretty passionate about playing lacrosse. And there honestly just aren't as many options to continue playing if you stay out west.
What were your academic pursuits heading into Tufts? Catherine, specifically, what were your interests, if you had any, heading into Tufts academically?
I would say that I didn't really know what I wanted to study at all, and that's why I liked Tufts. I liked the idea that I would be able to explore different fields before declaring a major, and I really valued the diverse course load that I've taken in the last 4 years. Um, I had an idea that I might be interested in psychology, which I ended up majoring in, but I honestly like the flexibility of the curriculum to not be pressured to go in with an exact idea of what I wanted to do in my life path.
And my academic pursuits were to go to college and a good one. I really wasn't thinking about what it was going to look like, but as it turned out, what I realized about myself is that I'm bored pretty easily. And so having a broad scope, at a liberal arts place. And then for me, I was an American Studies major, which was perfect for that because, it's a multidisciplinary, you can choose from so many different things. I got to take a class at the Fletcher School in American diplomacy like that. I don't know that happens. Catherine, can you guys take classes at Fletcher? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I haven't. I think you can. I think maybe you can squeeze into a few, but
yeah, but I think that opportunity as an American Studies major, and again, just crossing every single discipline was really, that was the most, that's what I enjoyed the most about the American Studies major.
During your time at Tufts, Cecelia, do you remember a favorite class that you took?
Well, Yiddish literature with Saul Gilman, the former provost, that was sort of a rite of passage for everybody. It was just really fun and interesting and out of most people's comfort zone. So that was great. I loved Virginia Drachman, who's I think still there in the women's studies, American history and women's studies departments. She was a wonderful professor. I really enjoyed her. And honestly, the accessibility of all the professors, I remember that being really different from what I was learning from my friends when I'd go home in the summertime, that I actually had relationships with professors and they sort of knew them, but they were definitely sort of out there where my professors were close.
Catherine, you've had a bit of a different academic path with the pandemic. You've taken some courses online as well as being in person for the first few years. What's a favorite class that you have taken during your time at Tufts?
I think that my favorite class I've taken is probably abnormal psychology. It's a super serious topic, but the teacher, Jackie Masher, makes it super exciting and interactive and interesting. And she also played lacrosse at Yale, which is pretty cool. So I kind of idolize her.
I loved abnormal psych too. That was a good class.
And to both of you, besides playing your sports and your academic classes, what's something about Tufts that you love?
Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay. I would say that I love the people here. I've met so many great friends and individuals, and right now I get to live in a house with 7 of my closest friends, some of which are on my lacrosse team, and I feel like that's just an invaluable experience that I probably won't ever get again. Yeah.
I agree. The people was a huge thing for me, and not just on my teams, but in my dorms and my apartments and just around campus. I also really enjoyed the X College. That was really fun. It was pretty new back then, so that I actually taught a class. My roommate and I taught a class called, I had to text her earlier to remind me what the name of the class was, but it was called The Culture of Modern Film. We essentially were like the original movie club, where we just assign movies and we talk about them and make kids our age write papers about films. It was really kind of, thinking back, I'm like, why did they let us teach a class? But it was really fun. And again, just a really unique opportunity at Tufts, which was cool.
Now let's jump into the sports part of this. What was the favorite aspect, or what is the favorite aspect of playing lacrosse at Tufts for you, Catherine?
Again, I would say I love the people and the friendships that I've made on my team. I like wouldn't be able to get through early morning lifts or late night practices without them. And I think the team culture we have is amazing. And everyone's so supportive. And I would say, like, specifically, I really love the balance between fun and intensity that everyone brings, like zoning in and working towards a common goal. And then switching it off when like you're done with the hard work and having fun with all your best friends is like a super fulfilling balance of work and fun. And I would say that I just love that aspect of Tufts lacrosse.
Same answer. I mean, literally all of it. For me, it was all of it from day one till right now. It has been a big love fest with my lacrosse team. I mean, we had a Zoom call on Sunday with I think 10 or 12 of us, and it's all of our teammates, and even Janet Silva, who was our trainer back in the day. Catherine, we're buddies with our old trainer. She's not old, she's just older. But anyway, yeah, honestly, it was everything from you spend all day together. You'd leave practice to run to the dining hall to barely get there for dinner, and we'd be sitting at dinner with napkins writing up plays for the next day that we wanted to try. Like, it was just this constant, and it was a complete marriage of fun and intensity, and it just was magical. And I'm so psyched that you guys have that. It's so fun to watch. And I'm also really jealous. That dance off thing was so cool.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Catherine, tell everybody about that for a second.
I'm assuming you're referring to the dance mob in the fall.
Yes.
Okay. So, given the pandemic and the fall practices looked a little different, we ended up being in cohorts by our position. And to spice things up, one day, the defensive cohort showed up. They're all wearing matching outfits. And then all of a sudden, a song started playing. I actually don't remember what song it was, but they went into like a full-fledged, like, choreographed dance, and it was honestly like the funniest thing ever, and it raised everyone's spirits so much and just made the practice so much more fun after that. Like, the energy was just insane. It was awesome.
It was just that practice, but they clearly had been practicing a ton.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I think that
unbelievable.
I think were having like 3 practices a week for the last like several weeks. Everyone was like exactly on cue. It was amazing.
Yes, that was reminiscent of our days of just trying to do the same things, of just like lifting, being really competitive even with each other, but then also just doing it to completely bust everybody up. It was yeah, really fun. Kudos, nice work to the defense. That was great.
I know. I wish I could dance like that.
That was impressive.
Can you both share a team tradition or funny story that you remember?
Yes, I have one. I have a lot, but the one I'm going to share is we used to, Catherine, have you heard that we used to paint the field house?
I think I have heard that.
So, and Paul, I'll give you a picture you can show, but back, it used to be this old field house right down by the Oval. And we used to climb the night before a game. So, you should be in bed, you should be, resting. We would, in the dark of night, we would like very dangerously like slam a big ladder up against the old field house by the Oval, climb up and like be teetering on the edge. There was nothing keeping us from falling off the roof of a field house, but we would paint something inspirational for our teammate. Sometimes it was sort of, it was mysterious, like only our teammates knew what it meant and the other team had no idea what it meant, but we would all be like the rest of the team. So there would be a few of us that would do this, and the rest of the team would get to the field and they couldn't wait to see what was maybe up in the field house. But the best part of this story is that in 1986, when they were getting ready to build the new Baronian field house, Rocky Carzo, who was the athletic director at the time, called a bunch of us into his office, and he was very stern, but he was actually begging us, like, please, like, this is a new multi-million-dollar field house. Like, it's been fine on the old field house, but do not paint. We're like, we'll think about it. And we didn't, of course, but that was, again, another thing that the coach would be not psyched the next morning to get to the field and see that we clearly had been up until 2 a.m. the night before a game. We're like, we got it, coach. Don't worry, we got it. And we did. So it all worked out. It was fun.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I wish that's something that we continued. I have 2 quick ones that I can share if we're good on time. So last year, this is one of my favorite stories. We had just finished the run test, which is like a February 13th, 14th. It's a lot, there's a lot of stress leading up to it, and then you finish and you're done and everyone feels accomplished. But everyone's stress levels were super high. So after we finished, the seniors pulled everyone aside and they told us they had a special surprise for us. And they ended up putting up like a white sign that said run test with a massive X through it, and then gave everyone a bag of tomatoes. And we all spent like 15 minutes just pelting the sign with tomatoes. And it was just a really fun, like stress relieving thing after running the run test. But that's just a funny story. But I guess one of my favorite traditions that we do every year before our first game is that we all meet in the locker room and our coach passes around letters from alumni, and we all take the time to read the letters and then go around and share like segments from them. Cecelia actually wrote my letter the last 3 years. And the letters are always super inspiring, and they like give you a lot of, they pump you up going into the first game of the season, and they remind you how many people there are that came before you and how big the Jumbo Lacrosse family is, and that we all love lacrosse, but like the connections and stuff are so much bigger than just lacrosse. So that's probably my favorite Tufts Lacrosse tradition.
I love that too. I love that Courtney brought that to you guys, because it also connects all of us with all of you and me with you. So it's been so fun every year to, well, first of all, because I got to know Catherine her freshman year, because before I met her, I Googled her, I Googled out to her, I saw little pictures of her in her little green and white uniform in Portland. And then I followed her really closely because I was sincerely invested. I really cared how she was. And, I wrote this really important letter to me because it was, and sadly, I mean, it's a good thing, but Catherine, if you remember, my letter really, what it always said was, you just never know. You never know. You have to appreciate every single moment. You never know what, and I didn't know if I meant an injury or just the end eventually. I certainly didn't mean a pandemic, but sort of making sure that you value every single minute with these teammates, because eventually you won't have the luxury of being in the dorm room next door or right down the hall or whatever. So
yeah.
Next, I'll ask you both to share something that you learned from your lacrosse coaches at Tufts. Cecelia, you played for 2 coaches, actually, Nita Lamborghini and Carol Rapoli. What did you learn from your coaches here?
So I think both of them, it was already a pretty successful, the program was on the rise in that moment. And it was always to expect more of yourself and never to settle. So because we were on the rise, it was like, no matter how good we get, it's not good enough because we're building something here. And and to have fun, but fun has to be, coupled with working really, really hard. And frankly, working really hard is fun.
And Catherine, you play for Courtney Shute. What have you learned from her?
I think that she's definitely emphasized that same message of working hard and working together. She has a lot of sayings that we go through like every day: give left and give right, make sure you're always supporting your teammates. But I think one of like the biggest lessons that I've been thinking about a lot recently is coach always emphasizes that like the little things are the big things. And I used to think about this message, I guess, like purely on the lacrosse field, like being the first one to ground balls, being early to practices, staying focused, like having the right positioning on the field. And that would eventually sum up to the big things like a win or playing time or getting to the Final Four. But I think that now that message like reaches so much beyond lacrosse, especially like in this pandemic, like the little things are definitely the big things, and like everything goes by so fast. I realize now with like almost 2 seasons getting taken away that I feel like I really value the little things so much more, and I'm so grateful that our coaches have really emphasized that throughout the last 4 years.
You've both played on historic teams at Tufts, and I'm going to ask you what was special about those squads. Catherine, you played on the 2019 team. That was the first team to qualify for the NCAA Final Four. Of course, Cecilia's teams couldn't play in the NCAA back then. They certainly would have gone to the Final Four and beyond, but the 2019 team broke through. Catherine, what was special about that squad?
I would say just playing in the Final Four, like alone, was just an amazing experience. But leading up to that, I think everyone was just like so bought into the culture, and everyone was working so hard together, like every single day. The team was super bonded, and everyone kind of like knew what everyone else needed. So if someone was having a bad day, like you knew what to say to get your teammate pumped up. And I would say like my grade specifically that year really grew together and bonded, and I felt like we got a taste of like what our team could do, and like we after that we were like, oh, we want more, like we want to do it again. And obviously we're still hoping we get the chance to do that. But now I feel like whenever I like reconnect with a teammate or something that was on that team, we'll always have like a special bond over like the experience of playing in the Final Four.
Cecelia, you were on 3 ECAC New England championship teams. Quick history lesson. It wasn't until 1993 that NESCAC teams, New England Small College Athletic Conference teams, were allowed to go to the NCAA tournament. So, Cecelia, you were on teams that the best you could do was win ECAC New England champions. You did that 3 times. The 1985 team was undefeated and has been inducted into the Tufts Athletics Hall of Fame. What was special about that squad?
Chemistry, for sure. It was just we there was an urgency to what we were doing, and there was definitely a confidence. Some of my teammates would argue that had we been able to play in the NCAAs, there was no question that the Jumbos would have. Oh yeah, and trust me, when the men's team won their first, that we had a lot of guy friends on the men's team back then, and the men's team was not very good in the late 80s. They were okay, but they weren't very good. So if you could see those emails going around between the men's team and the women's team being like, well, maybe the women will get it someday, we were all like ripping our hair out because we believed that we probably could have it back then. But yeah, there was definitely the chemistry and the belief in one another, which was so awesome that you could actually think 2 steps ahead because you knew it was going to, what you were expecting to happen was going to, because we were that. It was just a really remarkable time. And I see that in this team. And that's why last season was such, oh, Catherine, we were all, I know, actually I reached out to you. We were all so disappointed as if we were, your parents ourselves, which we are older than your parents, but we were felt that way. And Paul, actually I had the joy of being at that, to watching Catherine play in the Final Four, because it was here in Virginia. So Kate Donovan and Diane both came down. I flew home the week before to see them play at Tufts, or 2 weeks before, and then we're able to be here in Virginia to see them in the Final Four, which was really, really special. And got to visit with Catherine and her grandfather and her sister and her dad after the game. It was really special.
Yeah.
So Cecelia certainly keeps in touch with the current team. Catherine, I'll ask you, I mean, how aware are you and your teammates of the unbelievable success that the program had earlier in the 80s into the 90s, won a ton of ECAC championships, winning streaks, all sorts of success? Is that something that the current team members are aware of?
Yeah, it's actually something that our coach brings up a decent amount. Like I said, there's the whole like letter tradition that like always reminds us of the history of the team. But last year, I think it was, we got like our winter workout packets, which were in these folders, and on the cover, our coach pasted like photos of every previous Tufts lacrosse team. And we like went through and talked about like the history of the teams and stuff. And it was a reminder of like the success before us and like the bigger group of people we're working for.
That's great.
Okay, let's get real. 1985 versus 2019. Who wins? I want each of you to make a case just based on the field. No off the
Catherine, you
field
start.
history, no just on the field talent. We'll start with you, Cecelia. What was
Oh,
great about the 85 team?
So this is tough because when I saw the question before, I was thinking about it, and realistically, especially because I coach lacrosse, I gotta say these guys are bigger, faster, stronger than we were. For being completely honest, and my teammates are going to kill me when they see this later. But they are. I will have to say the heart that we had, and when we trust me, we actually were really big. I'm 5'9", and I was very average. Catherine is very much, she's the tallest kid on the team, right? Are you still the tallest, Catherine?
we have a pretty tall team. I have a few people that are my height, but 5'10", 5'11", yeah.
Yeah, so we were definitely big. And I have to say back in the day, there was a spotlight in the Tufts Daily on me, and the reporter asked me who the toughest defense was that we faced. And I said, that's so easy every single day in practice. Like, forget game day. Those are not the toughest. That's not the toughest competition we have. It's in practice. So I would argue that our competitiveness and that do or die, it was definitely super competitive, really, really fun. But watching these guys now and the way the game has changed, I've got to hand it to this current team.
I'm gonna have to agree that it's the 2019 team. I wish I could make a case, but I would say that we just had like insane depth. I think anyone could probably step on the field and like make an impact any single day, and I feel like that's how we kind of wear teams to the ground. Coach also likes to emphasize every single year she says that this is the fastest Tufts lacrosse team ever. So I guess we just keep getting faster and faster. But that's something that coach and our team always emphasizes is like being in shape and working hard and not stopping. So I guess like the competitiveness, the drive, there's a lot of chemistry, especially on the attacking end. I think that we're probably pretty tough to defend. We also have Molly Liberty, preseason goalie of the year. So she's kind of a brick wall. Yeah.
She's so fun to watch too.
Yeah, she's super active too.
Well, that was fun. Thank you, Cecelia. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This has been Jumbo Connections with members of the Women's Lacrosse program. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.